At 39 years old, Marcus Washington made $61,450 a year as a senior diesel mechanic. He was good with his hands, a master of engines that powered the nation's economy, and he believed in the solid, tangible world of torque, horsepower, and honest labor. His hands, calloused and often stained with a faint tracing of grease that no soap could fully erase, had built a life. Or so he thought. At 11:03 p.m. on a Tuesday night in late October, that life was being dismantled in the living room of the West Side bungalow he'd painstakingly paid for. The air was cold, thick with a silence that was louder than any argument. Brianna, his wife of 6 years, stood with her arms crossed, her beautiful face a mask of detached finality. Her deep brown skin, which he had always thought glowed with warmth, seemed to absorb the light in the room, leaving nothing but shadow. Flanking her were her two brothers, Kevin and Jamal. Kevin, the older one, had the smirking confidence of a man who had never known a day of real work. Jamal, younger and bigger, was the muscle, his presence a silent, looming threat. "What do you mean, pack a bag?" Marcus asked, his voice quiet. He had just gotten home from a 12-hour shift at the garage, his body aching with the familiar fatigue of a long day. He'd been looking forward to a hot meal and the simple comfort of his favorite armchair. "It means we're done, Marcus," Brianna said, her tone as sterile as a hospital room. She didn't look at him, her gaze fixed on a spot on the wall just over his shoulder. "This isn't working. It hasn't been for a long time." Kevin stepped forward, a proprietary air about him as he surveyed the modest living room. "Look, man, let's not make this difficult. Bree's made her decision. The house is in her name now. Everything is." He gestured vaguely around the room, at the $1,200 sofa Marcus had paid for, at the 65-inch television he'd installed last Christmas. "Just pack a bag with your clothes. You're done here." The words didn't compute. Done here? This was his home. The floorboards he'd replaced, the walls he'd painted, the leaky faucet in the kitchen he'd finally fixed just last weekend. And the business, the logistics company that was supposed to be their shared future. "The business," Marcus said, his mind reeling. "B&B Logistics, my money, my savings." A short, derisive laugh escaped Kevin's lips. "Your money? You gave Brianna a gift, a start. She and I and Jamal, we built it from there. You're a mechanic, Marcus. You don't know anything about running a real company." $148,000. That was the number that screamed in Marcus's head. His entire life's savings. The inheritance from his mother, the overtime checks he'd worked weekends for, the money he'd pulled from his 401k, incurring a massive penalty. He'd handed it all over, check by check, to fund their dream. Our dream, he had thought. He had seen the paperwork, the LLC filing for B&B Logistics, with her name on it. He trusted her. He had no idea what was coming. Do you know what it feels like to have the foundation of your world turn to dust in a single moment? If you've ever been blindsided by a betrayal so complete it steals the air from your lungs, let me know in the comments below. I think you'll understand the journey Marcus was about to take. Jamal took a step closer, his large frame blocking the hallway. "Don't make us call the cops, Marcus. It'll just be embarrassing for you. Just grab your stuff and go." Marcus looked at Brianna, searching for a flicker of the woman he had married. The woman whose laughter used to fill this house. He saw nothing. A stranger was wearing her face. He felt a profound and chilling emptiness. There was no fight in him, only a vast, hollow ache. Without another word, he turned, walked to the bedroom, and pulled out the worn duffel bag from the top of the closet. He packed his work uniforms, a few pairs of jeans, his toiletries, and the framed photo of his late mother from his nightstand. He left behind the $800 suit he wore to their wedding, the collection of watches she'd given him over the years, the entire life they had supposedly built together. As he walked out the front door into the damp, cold night, the click of the deadbolt behind him was the sound of a door not just closing, but being sealed forever. He was 45 minutes from his next birthday. He had $112 in his checking account, and he was, for all intents and purposes, homeless. The facade of their domestic life had been constructed with his money and her assurances. Marcus remembered the beginning of it all, 2 years prior, on a warm Sunday afternoon in their backyard. He was grilling burgers on the $450 charbroil grill he'd assembled himself, while Brianna laid out her vision. Her eyes were bright with ambition, her words painting a picture of a future so vivid he could almost touch it. "My brothers and I, we have this incredible idea," she'd said, leaning forward on the patio chair. "A logistics company. Kevin knows the dispatch side from his old job, and Jamal can handle the drivers. But we need capital, baby. We need trucks." Marcus, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, had felt a surge of pride. He loved her ambition. "Trucks are expensive, Bree." "I know," she'd said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But you're so smart with money. You've saved so much. This wouldn't just be for us. It would be for our future. A legacy." Legacy. That word had resonated deep within him. He was a man who built and fixed things. Building a legacy felt like the ultimate project. Over the next few weeks, the requests began. It started with the down payment for the first truck, a used 2017 Freightliner Cascadia. "We need $25,000 for the deposit, Marcus. It's a great deal, only 400,000 miles on it." He'd gone to the bank the next day and written a cashier's check from his savings account, the one he'd been feeding since he was 20 years old. He handed it to her in the kitchen, and her kiss was full of promises. A month later, it was another truck. "We found a Kenworth T680, a 2018 model. It's more fuel efficient. We need $32,000 for this one. This will double our earning potential, baby." He'd hesitated for a moment, the number stinging. That was a huge chunk of what was left of his inheritance from his mother, Mama Rose. He pictured her face, her belief in him. She always said, "Invest in family, and you'll never be poor." He'd written the check. The company, B&B Logistics, Brianna and Brothers, was born. He wasn't included in the name, but Brianna assured him it was just for branding. "It sounds catchy, that's all. You're the foundation, Marcus. You're the silent partner." He felt a thrill seeing the first truck with the logo on its side. He'd gone to the lot himself, spending a Saturday inspecting the engine, checking the fluid levels, running a diagnostic. The driver they'd hired, a man named Earl, had watched him with respect. "You know your way around this rig, boss," Earl had said. Marcus had just smiled. The domestic normalcy continued, but now it was punctuated by dollar-tagged details of their growing success. Brianna would come home talking about new contracts. "We landed a route to Atlanta. It's going to bring in an extra $8,000 a month." To celebrate, they'd go out to dinner at the Capitol Grill in Uptown Charlotte, a $300 affair where Marcus felt out of place in his clean shirt and jeans next to men in $3,000 suits. He'd pay with his personal credit card, believing he was investing in their shared happiness. Then came the need for a central office. "We can't keep running this off the kitchen table, Marcus. We need to look professional." They found a small, leased space near the airport. The first and last month's rent was $4,800. Marcus paid it. The office furniture from IKEA cost another $2,200. Marcus paid that too. His savings account, once a source of pride and security, was dwindling. But every time he felt a pang of anxiety, Brianna would wrap her arms around him. "Just a little longer, baby. Once the profits really start rolling in, we'll pay you back double. You'll be able to quit that greasy job and just manage your investment." He'd come home from his greasy job, and find Kevin and Jamal at his dinner table, talking about scaling up. They'd eat the food he bought, drink the beer from his fridge, and talk about a world of high-level business he didn't understand. He'd sit and listen, feeling like a guest in his own home. He was the money, the mechanic, the reliable man in the background. He was the foundation. He had no idea he was just the part of the building they stood on, meant to be buried and forgotten. He spent his days covered in grime, earning his $61,000 a year, while they were playing with his life savings, building a castle on his back. The cruelty began not with a bang, but with 1,000 tiny cuts. The escalating betrayal was a slow-leaking poison that Marcus, blinded by love and trust, failed to recognize until it was too late. It started with a change in Brianna's vocabulary. She stopped saying we and started saying I. It was my company, my success, the team I'm building. When Marcus would gently try to ask about the finances, about when he might see some of the promised returns, her responses became dismissive, tinged with an annoyance that felt like a slap. "Marcus, please," she'd say, waving a hand as if shooing away a fly. "You don't understand the complexities of cash flow and reinvestment. Just let me handle the business side. You're the silent partner, remember?" The phrase, once a term of endearment and inclusion, now felt like a command to shut up. The first major crack appeared 6 months before the eviction. He came home early one Friday, hoping to surprise her and take her out for a nice, simple dinner at a local spot they used to love. He walked into the living room to find her on the phone, her back to him. "No, Kevin, he doesn't have access to the accounts," she was saying, her voice sharp. "Of course not. He just provides the capital. It's cleaner that way. He thinks the initial $90,000 is all we've spent." Marcus froze in the hallway. 90,000? He had given her $148,000? Where was the other $58,000? His heart hammered against his ribs. She turned then and saw him. A flicker of panic crossed her face before being replaced by a practiced, dazzling smile. "Baby, you're home early." She ended the call quickly. "Just talking business with Kevin, stressful stuff." "I heard what you said, Bree," he said, his voice level. "You told him I only gave you 90,000. She didn't miss a beat. "It was just shorthand, Marcus. We were talking about the initial capital for the trucks, not the operational funds you helped with later. You're reading into things." She walked over, kissed him on the cheek, her lips cool. "Don't worry your pretty little head about the numbers. That's what you have me for." The condescension was so thick he could taste it. He wanted to push, to demand answers, but he looked into her eyes and chose to believe the lie. It was easier. Believing the truth would have meant acknowledging a chasm opening up beneath his feet. The outrage moments began to accumulate, each one a stone added to a pile on his chest. Kevin started driving a new car, a gleaming white BMW 3 Series, a car with a sticker price of at least $43,000. When Marcus asked how he could afford it, Kevin just laughed. "Perks of being an executive, my man. You wouldn't get it." Marcus looked at his own 2012 Toyota Camry, the one with 187,000 miles that he meticulously maintained himself, and felt a quiet, burning shame. Then came Brianna's shopping habits. Packages from designer brands started arriving at the house. A $2,400 Burberry trench coat. A pair of Christian Louboutin shoes for $800. When he questioned the expense, she was ready with a justification. "I have to look the part, Marcus. I'm meeting with clients, negotiating million-dollar contracts. I can't show up looking like I'm married to a mechanic." The words hit him like a physical blow. He looked down at his hands, the hands that paid for that coat, for those shoes, for the very house she stood in. For the first time, he felt not pride in his work, but a deep, corroding humiliation. The final, most brutal scene of cruelty happened a month before he was thrown out. It was his 39th birthday. He'd come home from work, exhausted but hopeful. He'd mentioned wanting a new torque wrench, a specific high-end model that cost about $350. It was a professional tool, an investment in his craft. He walked in to find Brianna, Kevin, and Jamal in the living room, a small, sad-looking cake on the coffee table. "Happy birthday," Brianna said, giving him a perfunctory peck on the cheek. His gift was a small, neatly wrapped box. He opened it. Inside was an $89 Timex watch. It was a perfectly fine watch, but next to it, on Kevin's wrist, was a brand new Rolex, a submariner that gleamed under the living room lights. A watch that cost at least $15,000. Marcus knew this because he'd seen Kevin showing it off to Jamal earlier, boasting about how the company was finally paying real dividends. Marcus looked from the Rolex to his Timex, and in that moment, the entire dynamic was laid bare. He wasn't a partner. He was a resource, a mine that they were stripping for parts. "It's nice," he said, forcing the word out. He strapped the cheap watch to his wrist. Kevin smirked. "Yeah, man. Gotta keep you on time for the garage." He clapped Marcus on the shoulder, a gesture that was meant to seem friendly, but felt like a public marking of his status. "Don't worry, big guy. We'll take care of Bree. You just keep those wrenches turning." Later that night, as he lay in bed next to a sleeping Brianna, Marcus felt a cold dread seep into his bones. He thought of the $148,000. He thought of the BMW and the Rolex and the Burberry coat. He thought of her words, "I can't show up looking like I'm married to a mechanic." He had given them his past, his present, and his future. And in return, they had given him a cheap watch and a pat on the head. He didn't know then that in just a few weeks, they would take the house and his dignity too. The betrayal wasn't just about money. They had stolen his belief in the life he was building, in the woman he loved. And that was a debt that could never be repaid. The first night was a blur of shock and adrenaline. Marcus drove his old Camry aimlessly through the sleeping streets of Charlotte, the city lights smearing through his windshield. He ended up at a cheap motel off I-85, the kind with flickering neon signs and the faint smell of bleach and despair. The room cost $68 for the night, a painful expense when he only had $112 to his name. The room was cramped, with a stained brown carpet and a bedspread that felt stiff and unwelcoming. The window looked out onto the roaring highway, a constant stream of headlights representing people going somewhere, while he was stuck in this anonymous, soul-crushing limbo. He sat on the edge of the bed for hours, the duffel bag at his feet. The events of the evening played on a loop in his mind. Brianna's cold eyes, Kevin's smirk, the final click of the deadbolt. He felt a wave of nausea. He had been so stupid, so blind. He had ignored every red flag, swallowing every lie because the truth was too painful to confront. Sleep was impossible. The sounds of the highway, the thin walls that let him hear the television in the next room, the racing of his own thoughts. It was a symphony of misery. At 4:17 a.m., he finally gave up on trying to rest. He sat up and reached for his phone. A mid-range Samsung that suddenly felt like his only connection to the world he once knew. He scrolled through photos of him and Brianna, a gallery of a life that was now a lie. He saw pictures from their wedding, a vacation to the Bahamas he'd paid for, $3,500, a Christmas where he'd given her a diamond necklace, $1,800. Each image was a fresh stab of pain. He was about to throw the phone against the wall when he navigated to his voicemail, intending to delete every saved message from her. Most were mundane. "Hey baby, can you pick up milk on your way home? Running late, don't wait up for dinner." Then he saw it. A voicemail from 2 weeks ago, from a number he recognized as Kevin's. He'd been on a long shift and had forgotten to listen to it. He'd seen the missed call and just assumed it was another casual pocket dial or a non-urgent business question. He never could have imagined the contents. He pressed play. The room was silent except for the hum of the mini fridge and the distant rumble of a passing truck. Kevin's voice, tinny and arrogant, filled the small space. "Yo, Jamal," the message began. Kevin must have thought he was calling his brother. "Listen, I was just looking at the quarterly filings our lawyer sent over. He's asking about the ownership structure again. Did you ever get Brianna to have Marcus sign that amendment form? The one that formally reduces his stake to 0? There was a pause. Marcus could hear the clinking of ice in a glass. Because right now, according to this original LLC filing from 2 years ago, he's still listed as the 51% managing member. 51%. I know, right? Fucking hilarious. We used that structure to get the initial bank loans because of his credit score, and then we just forgot. Brianna was supposed to handle it. He's the silent owner we forgot to remove." Another clink of ice, followed by a low chuckle. "I mean, it's not a big deal. He'll sign whatever Bree puts in front of him. The guy's a lovesick puppy. He hasn't asked for a P&L statement once. But we need to get it cleaned up before we file for the next round of financing. I don't want his name anywhere near the real money. Anyway, tell Brianna to get on that. We'll take him out for a steak dinner, give him some bullshit story about restructuring for tax purposes, and he'll sign his whole damn life away. He probably won't even read it. All right. Call me back." The message ended. Marcus sat in the suffocating silence of the motel room. The world outside, the rumbling trucks on I-85, the entire city of Charlotte, it all faded away. There was only the sound of his own breathing and Kevin's words echoing in his skull. 51% managing member. The silent owner we forgot to remove. He'll sign his whole damn life away. He didn't feel rage, not yet. The pain was too deep, too cold for that. It was a feeling of profound, chilling clarity. It was the sensation of a blind man seeing for the first time and realizing the world he'd been told about was a complete and utter fabrication. He had been a fool, but they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated him. They saw a simple mechanic, a pair of greasy hands, a soft heart. They didn't see the man who could dismantle a 15-liter Cummins diesel engine down to its last bolt and reassemble it with flawless precision. They didn't see the man who understood that every system, whether mechanical or legal, has a core structure. And they had just told him exactly where to find the master bolt. He played the voicemail again, and again, and a fourth time. He saved the message, backed it up to his cloud storage, and then forwarded the audio file to his personal email. It was 4:32 a.m. The first hint of gray light was appearing on the horizon. The night of his despair was ending. The day of his reclamation was about to begin. He picked up his phone, no longer to delete memories but to find a lawyer, at 8 a.m. Sharp? Marcus was sitting in the waiting room of Hayes Law Group, a firm he'd found through a frantic Google search for top business litigation attorneys in Charlotte. The office was in one of the glass towers uptown, a world away from his West Side bungalow. The receptionist had looked at him with a flicker of surprise, at his tired eyes, his work-worn jeans, and his simple jacket. He knew he didn't look like their typical client. He didn't care. He had the voicemail. He was shown into a conference room with a sprawling view of the city. A few minutes later, Alana Hayes walked in. She was a sharp, impeccably dressed black woman in her late 40s, her hair in elegant, tight coils. Her presence commanded the room. She moved with a purpose that radiated confidence. "Mr. Washington," she said, her voice crisp and professional as she shook his hand. "Your call was urgent. Please have a seat. Tell me what's going on." Her fee, her assistant had informed him, was $450 per hour. He had just enough left on his one credit card to cover the initial consultation. For the next 30 minutes, Marcus laid out the entire story. He spoke with a calm precision that surprised even himself. He started with $148,000, detailing the dates and amounts of each transfer. He talked about the trucks, the office, the promises. He described the slow-building cruelty, the insults, the Rolex, the eviction. He didn't let emotion creep into his voice. He stated facts, just as he would diagnose a faulty engine. Finally, he took out his phone, placed it on the polished mahogany table between them, and played the voicemail. Alana Hayes listened, her expression unreadable. When it finished, she didn't speak for a long moment. She simply looked at him, her gaze analytical, as if she were taking his measure. "They called you a silent owner," she said finally, her voice low. "They are about to find out how loud your silence can be." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. "Do you have any of the original business formation documents?" My ex-wife, she handled all of it," Marcus said. "It was all sent to her email. I never saw them. I just signed where she told me to sign." "That's what I assumed," Alana said, turning back to him. "They used your good credit and your capital to secure the financing, made you the majority owner to satisfy the bank's requirements for a personal guarantee, and then fully intended to write you out as soon as they could. But they got sloppy. They got arrogant." She walked back to the table and picked up her phone. She made a quick call to her paralegal. "Jessica, I need you to run a search on the North Carolina Secretary of State Business Registry. The company is B&B Logistics, LLC, formed approximately 2 years ago. I want the full filing history, articles of organization, everything. Put a rush on it." She hung up and looked at Marcus. "The good news, Mr. Washington, is that if that document says what I think it says, you don't just have a claim. You own the company, the trucks, the contracts, the bank accounts, all of it. As the 51% managing member, you have controlling interest. You have the authority to make all executive decisions." Marcus felt a tremor run through him, the first flicker of hope. "So what do? We don't do anything small," Alana said, a flinty spark in her eyes. "We don't send a polite letter. We don't ask for a negotiation. They expelled you from your home in the middle of the night. We will expel them from your business in the light of dawn." The plan she laid out was audacious, precise, and breathtaking in its scope. It was a strategic masterclass in leverage and legal power. First, her firm would front the immediate costs, to be recovered from the business assets later. She was investing in him. Second, they would obtain a certified copy of the Articles of Organization. Third, she would prepare termination letters for Brianna, Kevin, and Jamal, citing misuse of company funds and breach of fiduciary duty. Fourth, she would contact the company's bank, present the legal documentation of his majority ownership, and have him installed as the sole signatory on all accounts, freezing out the others immediately. "And finally," she said, leaning forward, "the most important part. We need to secure the assets. The trucks are likely on the road. But the headquarters? Where is it?" "Ballantyne," Marcus said. "A big warehouse and office complex." "Perfect," Alana smiled. "I have a relationship with a 24-hour commercial locksmith and a private security firm. Tonight, we will have every lock in that facility rekeyed. Tomorrow morning, a security team will be on site to prevent any unauthorized access. And you, Mr. Washington, will be there to open the doors to your company." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "They threw you out at 11 p.m. It seems only fitting that you take back what is yours at sunrise." Marcus sat back, the sheer velocity of the plan taking his breath away. In the space of an hour, he had gone from a homeless, broken man in a cheap motel to the rightful owner of a multi-million-dollar logistics company, armed with one of the sharpest legal minds in the state. There is one more thing, Alana added. From this moment on, you do not speak to them. You do not answer their calls, their texts, their emails. You do not respond to any attempts at contact. Let them believe you are broken. Let them get comfortable in their victory. Their arrogance is our greatest asset. Marcus nodded, a cold resolve hardening within him. I understand. He walked out of that glass tower and into the bright afternoon sun. He wasn't the same man who had walked in. The grief was still there, a hollow space in his chest where his love for Brianna used to be. But now it was surrounded by something new, a core of cold, hard steel. The hours that followed were a strange exercise in controlled silence. Marcus checked out of the grimy motel, Alana's firm having wired a $5,000 retainer advance to his nearly empty bank account. He found a clean, anonymous, extended-stay hotel in a different part of town, one that cost $120 a night, but offered the peace of mind of a locked door and a quiet room. He spent the afternoon buying new clothes, not luxuries but necessities. A few pairs of sturdy work pants, plain t-shirts, and a simple dark navy suit from a department store that cost $225. It wasn't an Armani, but it felt like armor. His phone, which had been silent since the eviction, began to light up. The first text was from Brianna, around 3 p.m. I know you're upset, but this was for the best. I've already started the divorce paperwork. My lawyer will be in touch. He read the message and felt nothing. He didn't reply. An hour later, another text from her. Are you just going to ignore me? So childish. At least let me know where you are so I can have the rest of your junk sent over. He deleted the message without responding. The word junk barely registered. His mother's picture was safe in his bag. Nothing else mattered. That evening, the calls started. First Kevin, he let it go to voicemail. Hey, Marcus, it's Kevin. Listen, Bree told me you moved out. Hope you're doing all right, man. No hard feelings. It's just business. The casual hypocrisy was breathtaking. Marcus saved the voicemail and sent a copy to Alana. Then Jamal called. He let that go to voicemail too. Yo, Marcus, Jamal. Look, sorry about how things went down. You're a good dude. Just, you and Bree weren't working. She needs a guy who's on her level, you know? Anyway, take it easy. On her level. The phrase dripped with the same condescension that had characterized their entire relationship. He ate a simple dinner from the grocery store in his hotel room, a rotisserie chicken for $7.99, and a bag of salad. As he ate, he thought about Brianna and her brothers, probably out to a lavish dinner at a place like Fleming's, spending his money, celebrating their victory. They thought he was gone, a problem solved. They were sitting in a house built on a lie, running a company they thought was theirs, completely oblivious to the legal storm gathering just over the horizon. The dramatic irony was a small, cold comfort. The most difficult part was the late-night text from Brianna. It arrived at 10:45 p.m., almost exactly 24 hours after she had thrown him out. Marcus, I'm being serious. Where are you? Are you okay? I know I was harsh, but I am still worried about you. Please just text me back so I know you're safe. For a fleeting moment, he felt a pang of the old affection. Was this a flicker of genuine concern? He almost typed back a simple, I'm fine. But then he remembered Alana's instructions. He remembered the voicemail. He'll sign his whole damn life away. This wasn't concern. This was control. This was her needing to know she still had power over him, that he was still the predictable, heartbroken man she could manage. He put the phone down, face down on the nightstand. He was playing a role. He was the defeated man, the heartbroken husband, the broke mechanic with nowhere to go. Every moment of his silence, every unanswered call, was part of the strategy. It was lulling them into a false sense of security, allowing the finality of their actions to settle in their minds. They had won. It was over. He lay in the clean, quiet hotel room, the navy suit hanging on the back of the door. He thought about the next morning. He wasn't thinking about revenge. The word felt too hot, too messy. This wasn't about passion. This was about balance. It was about restoring an order that had been violently disrupted. It was about taking back the life he had built, screw by screw, bolt by bolt. He was a mechanic, after all, and he was about to perform the most important repair of his life. Dawn broke over Charlotte at 6:45 a.m., painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and soft orange. The light of a new day. For Marcus, it felt like the beginning of a new life. He was already awake, showered, and dressed in the $225 navy suit. He wore a crisp white shirt and his old, reliable $89 Timex watch. It felt appropriate. It was a reminder of their contempt, a symbol of how they saw him. At precisely 7 a.m., a knock came at his hotel room door. He opened it to find a large, stern-faced man in a black suit. "Mr. Washington, I'm with Phoenix Security. Your transportation is ready." Marcus followed the man out to the parking lot. Waiting there was not one, but three gleaming black SUVs, a Chevrolet Suburban, a Cadillac Escalade, and a Lincoln Navigator. They were parked in a neat, imposing line, their engines humming quietly in the cool morning air. This was Alana's touch. It wasn't just about transport, it was a statement. It was a projection of power and seriousness. He got into the back of the lead vehicle, the Suburban. The leather seats were cool, the interior silent. The quiet professionalism of the security team was a stark contrast to the chaotic emotions of the past 2 days. The convoy moved out, gliding smoothly onto the highway. They drove south, away from the working-class west side and towards the manicured, moneyed enclave of Ballantine. As they drove, Marcus watched the city transform. The landscape shifted from modest brick homes and small businesses to sprawling corporate campuses and gated communities. It was the world Brianna had wanted so desperately to belong to, a world she had tried to buy with his life savings. At 7:30 a.m., the convoy pulled into the sprawling parking lot of the Ballantine Corporate Park. The B&B Logistics Warehouse was a modern 20,000-square-foot facility, a sleek box of gray steel and blue-tinted glass. Marcus had only seen it once, from the outside, shortly after they'd leased it. Brianna had told him he didn't need to come inside. "It's just boring office stuff, baby. You'd hate it." The SUVs parked directly in front of the main glass doors. Alana Hayes was already there, standing on the sidewalk, a leather briefcase in her hand. She wore a sharp, dark gray suit, and her expression was one of calm, focused intensity. Next to her stood another man in a black suit, the head of the security detail, and a locksmith who was just packing up his tools. "Good morning, Marcus," Alana said, her voice even. She handed him a single, newly cut key. "The locks were changed at 4 a.m. The alarm code has been reset. This is the only key that currently exists for this building. The security team will remain on site for the next 72 hours. Marcus took the key. It felt heavy in his hand, substantial. This was real. He looked at the tinted glass doors, seeing his own reflection. A man in a simple suit, flanked by power and authority. He felt a quiet strength settle over him. His deep brown skin seemed to soak up the morning sun, and for the first time in days, he stood up straight. At that moment, a white BMW 3 Series swung into the parking lot, moving too fast. Kevin was behind the wheel, a pair of expensive sunglasses on his face, a travel mug of coffee in his hand. He pulled into his designated parking spot, labeled Kevin Reynolds, Director of Operations, and got out, talking loudly on his phone. "Yeah, I'm telling you, the deal is closed. We're looking at another 3 trucks by Q2. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw the scene in front of the building. The 3 black SUVs, the security guards. Alana Hayes in her power suit, and Marcus. He lowered his phone, his smirk faltering. Confusion clouded his face. "Marcus? What the hell is this? What are you doing here?" Marcus didn't answer. He simply looked at him, then turned his attention to the lock. Just then, a second car, a leased Audi A6, pulled up. Jamal got out, followed a moment later by Brianna in her own leased BMW 7 Series, a vehicle with a monthly payment of over $1,100. They all stopped dead, their morning routines shattered. Their faces cycled through confusion, then annoyance, then a dawning sense of dread. "Marcus, what is going on?" Brianna demanded, her voice sharp with authority that was no longer hers. "Who are these people? I told you you're not welcome here." Marcus ignored her. He looked at Alana, who gave him a slight nod. He turned back to the door, inserted the new key into the lock, and turned it. The sound of the deadbolt retracting was crisp and loud in the morning air. It was a sound of finality, a sound of reclamation. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, into the cool, quiet lobby of his company. He held the door for Alana, who followed him in. The security team moved to flank the entrance, their presence a silent, immovable barrier. Kevin, Jamal, and Brianna rushed towards the door. "Hey, you can't just walk in here," Kevin shouted, his face turning red. The head of security stepped forward, blocking their path. "I'm sorry, sir, but your access to this facility has been revoked." "Revoked? By who?" Jamal blustered. Alana Hayes stepped back into the doorway, her voice cutting through the air, cold and precise. "By the 51% managing member and majority owner of B&B Logistics, LLC, Mr. Marcus Washington." She held up a folder. "In my hand, I have a certified copy of the Articles of Organization filed with the state of North Carolina. I also have letters of immediate termination for cause for Brianna Washington, Kevin Reynolds, and Jamal Reynolds for gross misuse of company assets and breach of fiduciary duty. A full forensic audit is already underway." The color drained from their faces. Brianna stared at Marcus, her mouth slightly agape. The mask of detached cruelty had shattered, replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. "Marcus, you can't do this," she whispered, the words trembling. Marcus finally looked at her. He felt a pang of something, not love, but a sad, distant memory of it. He thought of her words from that horrible night. "You're done here." He thought of Kevin's words on the voicemail. "The silent owner we forgot to remove." He looked at his lawyer. He looked at his wife. He looked at the brothers who had mocked him. Then he gave the calmest, most devastating reply he could. "The silent owner," Marcus said, his voice steady and clear, "is no longer silent." He then turned his back on them and walked deeper into his company, leaving Alana and the security team to handle the fallout at the door. The sun streamed through the high windows of the warehouse, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It was his, all of it. The collapse of their world was not a single explosion, but a cascade of consequences, each one a direct result of their own actions, delivered with the cold, impersonal precision of the law. While Marcus spent the day inside his warehouse with a forensic accountant Alana had hired, the dominoes began to fall outside. The first consequence was immediate and public. As Kevin, Jamal, and Brianna stood in the parking lot, screaming into their phones at lawyers who were suddenly not returning their calls, a tow truck arrived. It was dispatched by the leasing company, notified by Alana's firm that B&B Logistics would no longer be covering the payments for unauthorized personal vehicles. The driver, methodical and unimpressed by their protests, hooked up Brianna's $95,000 BMW 7 Series. The $100 per month lease was in the company's name. As it was towed away, Brianna let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. Humiliation was a new and unwelcome feeling for her. Kevin's BMW was next. The second consequence was financial. At 9:15 a.m., Alana received confirmation from the bank. Marcus was now the sole signatory on all corporate accounts. The balance in the primary account was $212,840. The company's credit cards, which Brianna and her brothers used as their personal slush fund, were immediately canceled. The first they knew of it was when Brianna, trying to call an Uber to get home from the now hostile territory of the warehouse, saw the notification on her phone. Payment method declined. Her face went white. The third consequence was professional. The letters of termination were emailed and sent via courier. Kevin was officially out of his job as Director of Operations, a title that came with a fraudulent $120,000 annual salary. Jamal lost his $95,000 a year position as logistics manager. Their corporate-funded lives vanished in an instant. Kevin's luxury apartment in South End, which was on a corporate lease for $3,200 a month, was now his liability. The eviction notice would be filed by the end of the week. The fourth consequence was legal and deeply personal. At noon, a courier delivered a thick legal envelope to the West Side bungalow where Brianna was now stranded. It contained the divorce filing from Marcus, citing financial fraud. Tucked inside was a formal demand letter from B&B Logistics, compiled from the preliminary findings of the forensic accountant. It was an itemized list of their greed. $18,450 for a trip to Paris for Brianna and a friend, listed as client relations. $15,200 for Kevin's Rolex Submariner watch, listed as employee performance bonus. $8,700 for a down payment on a boat for Jamal, listed as equipment purchase. $34,000 in charges at high-end restaurants, stores like Saks Fifth Avenue and Neiman Marcus, and spas over the last 18 months, all on the company card. The letter demanded the immediate return of $76,350 in clearly misappropriated funds within 30 days, or the company would pursue a civil case for fraud and embezzlement, with the voicemail from Kevin as Exhibit A. Their frantic voicemails to Marcus began, each one a snapshot of their unraveling. Kevin, 2:30 p.m. Marcus, you son of a... You think you can get away with this? We built this company. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Brianna, 4 p.m., her voice shaking with rage. How dare you? After everything I did for you to build this for us, you're trying to ruin me. You're trying to ruin my family. Jamal, 6 p.m., pleading, look, man, we can work this out. There's been a misunderstanding. Just call me back. We can talk this through, just us. Brianna, 9 p.m., crying now. Marcus, please don't do this. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was stupid. Don't take everything from me. I have nothing. Marcus listened to each message, his face impassive. He saved them, forwarded them to Alana, and then deleted them from his phone. He felt no satisfaction, only a profound, weary sadness for the woman she had become. She hadn't been sorry when she'd put him out in the cold. She was only sorry she got caught. Her world had collapsed, not because of him, but because its foundation was rotten from the start. He was just the one who finally decided to check the structural integrity. 1 year later. The sun, now a familiar and welcome presence, streamed through the large bay doors of the warehouse. The air smelled of diesel, coffee, and honest work. The blue and gray logo for B&B Logistics was gone, replaced by a bold, simple design in black and gold, West Side Hauling. The name was Marcus's idea. It was a tribute to where he came from, a statement of his values. The business was thriving. Marcus had discovered he had a natural aptitude for the work. His mechanic's mind, so adept at understanding complex systems, saw the flow of trucks and routes as just another engine to be optimized. He had spent the first few months in a whirlwind of learning, devouring books on logistics, talking to drivers, and working side by side with the few honest employees who had remained. He secured the contracts Brianna had bragged about, but he did it with fair pricing and reliable service, not empty glamour. He expanded their routes, adding 2 more trucks to the fleet, paid for in cash from company profits. But the most significant change was the people. Marcus had made it his mission to hire from his old neighborhood. He brought on drivers who were struggling to find stable work, men he knew to be decent and hardworking. He hired 2 young men from the local community college's mechanic program as apprentices, paying them a good wage and teaching them everything he knew. One of them, a bright-eyed 20-year-old named Dion, reminded Marcus of himself at that age. This afternoon, Marcus was under a truck with Dion, showing him how to diagnose an issue with the air brake system. He was back in his element, wearing grease-stained coveralls, his hands working with practiced ease. "See this airline here?" Marcus said, pointing with a wrench. "You've got a slow leak at the fitting. It's not about just tightening it. It's about replacing the seal. Do it right the first time, and it won't fail you on the road." "Yes, sir, Mr. Washington," Dion said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's Marcus," he said with a smile. "We're a team here." He had sold the bungalow on the west side. The memories were too painful. Brianna had been forced to agree to the sale to pay off her portion of the debts she'd accrued. He now lived in a small, clean apartment not far from the warehouse. It wasn't luxurious, but it was his. The walls were decorated not with expensive art, but with framed photos of his crew and their families, and a special drawing given to him by the daughter of one of his drivers. It showed a big truck with the West Side Hauling logo and a smiling stick figure with Marcus written above it. It was the most valuable thing he owned. What happened to them? The consequences had been absolute. Faced with irrefutable evidence, they had no choice but to surrender. Brianna and her brother signed a settlement agreement, relinquishing all claims to the company and agreeing to a payment plan to return the stolen funds. She moved back in with her parents, her life of luxury a bitter memory. Kevin, unable to find work at the executive level he felt he deserved, was last heard of working a commission-only sales job. Jamal was driving for a rideshare service. They were shadows, footnotes in his story. Marcus rarely thought of them. He had found a different kind of wealth. It wasn't in the balance of his company bank account, which was healthier than ever. It was in the pride on Dion's face when he successfully repaired his first engine. It was in the gratitude of a driver who could finally afford a down payment on a house for his family. It was in the quiet satisfaction of building something real, something that served his community. We often think of wealth in terms of what we can buy, the luxury we can display. But true wealth, real legacy, isn't about what you own. It's about what you build and who you lift up along the way. It's about creating value that extends beyond yourself, nurturing growth in your own backyard. It's the difference between a flashy car that loses its value the moment you drive it off the lot and a sturdy foundation upon which others can build their own futures. What do you think is the true measure of a successful life? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe in the power of integrity and second chances, make sure to like and subscribe to Love Beyond Pride for more stories of justice and redemption.